Welcome to Beyond the Closing Table. I'm Michael Martin, and I'm here to dive into strategies, stories, and lessons from top producing real estate agents, mortgage loan officers, and entrepreneurs. We're going to hear to learn about their failures, about their successes, and how you can implement things into your business right now. I'm here with my guest, Ashley Quinn. So happy for you to be here.
Hi, Michael Martin. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Ashley is a friend, but also a business partner. We do a lot of work together and a neighbor, which actually works out pretty cool too. So thank you so much for being here. Ashley, I'm going to tell a little bit about you, and then I'm just going to ask some more questions. So my understanding, you got in the real estate business in 2016?
I did. Got my license in summer of 2016, really on a whim.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's the perfect lead into what were you doing before and how in the heck did you get into real estate?
Great question. I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years because my husband traveled all over the country. He would fly out on a Sunday night, fly back on a Friday, and I had these two children that needed to go here, there, and everywhere, so it really didn't lend itself to me having the kind of job that I have now. And when my oldest son got his learner's permit to drive, I said, this mama is out of here. I am tired of you people. I'm going back to work. But as I was thinking about it, I have 2 college degrees, had not worked in quite some time. And in the back of my head, I remembered this friend of mine who owned his own firm in Greenville, North Carolina. Every time I would see him, he would say, go get licensed and come work with me. Go get licensed and come work with me. Go get licensed and come work with me. So when it was time for me to leave this house and go back to work, I thought, you know, what the heck? I'll just go get my real estate license. It's 2 tests, $600. If it completely implodes, we really haven't lost anything. Let's give it a shot. And that literally, I signed up the next day for the class. 6 weeks later, I was licensed.
How about that? And I believe you said this year you're going to close somewhere around 28 million and about 58 clients or something like that?
That is correct.
Wow.
Yes.
That is phenomenal success in a pretty short period of time, and especially in what's been a really tough year. So congratulations for sure on that.
Well, thank you.
It will tell you as a loan officer that gets a chance to work with you, you make this job a lot more fun. It'd be working with you, and every time you and I talk to each other on the phone, it usually ends up in a lot of laughing. But we're also sharing some of the struggles that we have within our own business, right? We kind of vet to each other a little bit.
Yes. And if we can't laugh about it, then then I don't know that we'd get through the day to day. But
for sure.
But yeah.
So before you were stay-at-home mom, you said you had 2 degrees. What were you doing before that?
I have 2 chemistry degrees, which, by the way, I always win 2 truths and a lie with that.
Okay.
People never guess that I have 2 chemistry degrees, but I do. So I was a pharmaceutical chemist for a little while.
Okay.
And then after that, I worked for our church for just a minute because they needed someone who was good with people. And I raised my hand. I said, hey, I'm pretty good with people. So then I did that for a little while.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of how you got here. So been in this business for 8-ish, 9-ish years. Here we are having another great year. Tell us a little bit about your journey from when you first started, and maybe even think about as you're kind of going through this in your mind, if you were talking to a newer agent today, what would you share that you learned really well about, and maybe even what you might have done differently?
Well, I tell people I was probably as naive as one could possibly be. I just told you the story about how I got licensed, and that is a metaphor for my entire first year. I had no idea what I was doing, really. No clue. Now, what I do is not rocket science necessarily, but I did not know about a septic system. I didn't know about a transaction and what it should look like. But what I did know is how to take care of people. I am from a small southern town. We know everyone. I'm raised by great folks, my own family, but also just the town. And so
Sure.
I knew how to take care of people, and I knew how to be attentive to them. And so I started from the very beginning with that being a focus. I had also sold myself and purchased several homes. And I thought, I'm going to do this better than anyone. I'm going to take care of people better than anyone. And that has always been my mission statement, is that anyone who touches a transaction with Ash is going to say they were better because of it. It's interesting that you say we have a lot of fun. And that's actually one of part of our mission, is that loan officers and closing attorneys, our clients, other agents would say we're great to work with. And so I started off that way, and I have built every single year into making that better for everyone involved, not the least of which are my clients. And I'm obsessed with their experience. And so that's the way I started out, even though I didn't know all of the nuts and bolts. I knew a lot of people in North Carolina because I've lived in several small towns and Raleigh for a long time. And so those people were very good to me in the first 2 years and sending their friends and family. And that's how I built my business. I also was an early adopter of Facebook. Now, this would have been like, I don't even know, decades ago that, and so I had a lot of friends and family already on Facebook, and I would just on a Wednesday, drive around, learn how to unlock a lockbox, and shoot a video in a house or in a yard or in a neighborhood, and then I'd post it on my personal Facebook channel.
Like 7 or 8 years ago, you were doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 2016. In 2016, Ash was driving around the Raleigh area, shooting videos on my phone in front yards of homes that were listed but vacant.
Well, then clearly you were an early adopter of video, because there are still people today that don't do videos. We preach videos constantly to our partners, because it's just, I mean, I don't know how long it's been said that if video is the next email or the next phone. Like, at the end of the day, video is how people learn and see and so forth. We didn't have any idea what would happen with Instagram and, TikTok and all these different things. But even back then, in 2016, Facebook video was not something that I know a lot of people that were doing it. There were a few people doing it, but not, I can tell you, I was doing very little, if any, at that point in time. Obviously, I've adopted video as a big part of our strategy on how we brand and make sure people know about us.
It was almost easier back then, though, I will tell you.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I'm a wing it and sling it. That's what I call it. So I think now there's so much video out there that we can get in our head about what it needs to look like and what it needs to sound like. And it just doesn't. Just grab your iPhone and shoot something in your car. I think they perform better now. Now we're watching to see how things perform. Back then I wasn't. I want people to know I'm selling real estate. Really, sure. That was the whole motivation. And so sometimes now I think we can make it a little more complicated. Don't make it complicated. Just shoot it. And the people that already know and trust you are in your sphere in those social media channels. They just want to see what you're doing, and you just want to tell them you're selling whatever it is you're selling.
That's right.
And just don't make it hard. Don't make it complicated.
I think so many times we watch the video and then we won't post it, right? Because we're like, oh, I don't want to look like that. But that's what you look like, right?
Correct.
That's what you sound like.
That's what I'm more about what I sound like, because this accent does not go away. But yeah, no, you just got to get it out there and do it. And I did that. And that's really how I would say I built the first 2 years, because people who already knew me were like, oh, Ash is selling real estate. I know some people moving to the Raleigh area. Let's see how that can work. So that's how I built it, really.
That's great.
To begin with.
What, so you've obviously built a team over a period of time. What made you first go, okay, I need someone else? Now, actually, I'm going to back that up even more further now that I think about it. I assume you had some sort of mentor early on. Who would that have been, and or how did they help you?
Well, early on, my broker in charge at the first firm was very encouraging of me. And I will never forget, I had the top performing agent in our firm in my first 6 months look at me and say, in 3 years, you're going to sell $10 million in real estate. Wow. And I said, you have lost your mind. There is no way I could not even see that would happen. He was right. In my third year, I sold $10 million in real estate. So I had a lot of encouragers in the beginning, because they would see something in me that I think, because they knew what it was going to take. So yes. So my broker in charge at my first firm, very encouraging. And then that agent was very encouraging, even without me being on his team.
Sure.
Very encouraging. And they were always open for me to ask questions about how I needed to do things or how they would handle a transaction. In our industry, all of the transactions are the same, yet each one is different and they're nuanced. And so having people that would help me along the way when I got stuck was
Yeah, I've
important.
heard somebody describe it as it's like each transaction is just like a different puzzle. At the end of the day, right, the puzzle pieces may even be the same shape, but you put a different picture on top of them, everything changes.
Yes.
Right?
And that happens every single time.
Yes,
Yeah.
without a doubt, every
Yeah,
single
that's right.
time. So when I first got in the mortgage space, well, I moved to Raleigh in 2002. My best friend from high school was a loan officer, and he is the one who encouraged me to move here. And I'd gone through some life changes and was ready to move to a different city. I was living in Hickory at the time, Hickory, North Carolina, which is where I met Tanya. And when I moved here, my buddy was the number one producer for the office that we had, or for CCB. You remember Central Carolina Bank, and so he was my mentor and taught and trained me. I learned a lot by doing. Is just answer the phone, say the wrong thing, ask more questions, and then figure it out. Right.
And that is an interesting topic, I think, because there is no substitution for that. Like, even though we both had mentors, I find that some people are afraid to just pick up the phone and call. My very first transaction, I called the closing attorney after I sent her the contract and said, "This is my first transaction. I have no idea what I'm doing." She said, "No problem. We'll hold your hand all the way through it." When I had my first well test, I had no idea about, I'm a city girl. I had no idea about well water. What did I do? I picked up the guy doing the test and go, "Explain this report to me." So I think sometimes people expect that there's someone that's going to hold your hand through it, but there is no substitution for just getting in there and getting it done, figuring out the answer. I mean, my goodness, we've got the internet. We can certainly figure things out. But I think that having that ability is an important component to being successful, especially in something like what we do.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you just kind of have to go for it and grow the wings right on your way down.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
It's a really big part of what this is.
Yes.
This is actually kind of a good transition to one of the top topics you and I were speaking about. Whether you're a real estate agent or a mortgage lender or any other person, probably in sales, you're first a salesperson, right? So you have a lot to learn so that you know how to educate and then hopefully how to convert a sale. But after you're in the business for a period of time, then you become and realize that you're not just a salesperson, you're a business owner. And you've made a comment, I'll let you just kind of run with it, of what you said earlier when we were talking.
Yeah, I call myself an accidental business owner. I never intended to be a business owner. It never occurred to me that I would be a business owner. Yet, probably year 3, it became abundantly clear that I did not know what I was doing. I was, at that point, the flywheel effect had kicked in, and clients were coming to me, and I was growing. I had no idea what to do at that point. Do I hire someone? Who do I hire? How much do I pay them? How much margin should I have in my expenses? How much should I be spending on marketing? Where should I be marketing? All of that. I did not expect that was going to happen. And I would say that has been a steeper learning curve than even the real estate part, and learning about selling real estate. That's been a little bit more difficult for me. I hired my first team member when I was selling about 8 million, and that was probably 25 transactions a year. And I should have done it about 3 million earlier. I should have hired someone at about 5 million. So if you're listening to this and you sell real estate and you're experiencing some success, hire some administrative help and get them up and running, because it'll take you a while to get them up
So
and
I
running.
think
I should have done that first.
depends probably on what your goals are, right?
Right.
There are some people that are fine closing 10, 12 transactions a year. In fact, that's way higher than the national average for a real estate agent, right? And if you're going to close one a month, you could probably manage most of it by yourself. The challenge, right, is the constant hamster wheel of prospecting in most cases. Now, you said prospecting really kind of came natural to you, and people started kind of, because you already had this relationship with a lot of people, especially on social media, and so it just kind of came to you. That's not normal, I don't think, in the real estate or mortgage world. I feel like I've been doing this for 23 years. There should be a line out the door by now. Unfortunately, it's just not the way it is.
Right.
Our clients love us. They have a great experience. And you're like, why are they not just piling up like a doctor's office where you just set appointments and they show up, right? It's simple enough. But it doesn't work that way for most people. And so prospecting becomes something, it's got to be a daily discipline in some way, right? I don't know if that's needed for you or not. For me, I have to make 2 to 4 hours worth of prospecting phone calls every single day. And then I block off the rest of the day for client meetings or managing my team or those kinds of things. How do you manage prospecting in your business currently?
Well, I would say I'm more of a passive prospector. I
Okay.
try to do things that reach a large audience rather than just sitting down and making phone calls. It's me sitting down anywhere is unnatural. So I've done some things that allow me to not have to sit down there and make phone calls. Now, I may eventually have to do that. We just talked about this a little bit. I may have to adjust my strategy at some point. But right now, my sphere is very good to me in either recommending me to their friends and neighbors or using me again and again and again. So I haven't had to sit down and prospect. But I'll tell you what's interesting about real estate is that we spend an awful lot of time showing homes. And to me, that's part of the sales process. I develop rapport when I'm showing people homes. It takes a lot of time. So even though we may only have 1 or 2 or 3 transactions a month, we're spending all day Saturday, sometimes half a day Sunday, showing people houses. And having some help to do some of the behind the scenes things frees you up to be able to do that more so that then you can handle a larger client load and then, be able to convert those clients while we do that. So the prospecting, I'm a little more passive, but I decided when I initially started, I was spending a lot of money farming neighborhoods and doing this, that, and another. That I still do that. That is a long-term play. But now I farm my sphere.
Okay.
So the people that I know get texts from me regularly. They get a postcard from me once a month. That's, we call it an evidence of success. Mm-hmm. It's where, hey, Ashley sold this. It's near you, that kind of thing.
I get it every month.
Do you? You get my face in your mailbox. You're welcome. Handwritten notes to folks. And I have continued with the video. The video is very successful for me. So social media videos, emails once a month via video where I'm giving them a tidbit, telling people what's going on in the market. While we're recording this right now, the market is a little bit tumultuous. And so just updating people on what's actually going on. There's a lot about real estate in the news, educating them about what's actually going on through email video. That has been really successful for me so that I don't necessarily right now have to sit down for 4 hours a day and make phone calls.
Sure.
But that's really how I prospect.
Okay. Very good. Let's talk a little bit about your current team. So you've gone through some variations of your team throughout the years. What does your team look like this year or now? And what are you doing to prepare for 2025 and beyond?
This is an interesting question right now because my team was much larger at the beginning of the year than it is currently. I have downsized my team. And what I've learned about myself, circling back to the accidental business owner, just because you're a great agent doesn't mean you're necessarily a great hirer, a great trainer. I have learned that about myself. I am not great at hiring, and I am even worse at training. I'm a doer. That comes easily to me. I see a problem, I solve it, period. And I have high expectations for everyone on my team that they would see the problem and they would solve it. And what I have learned about myself is that I've got to back up and take some time and mentor people through those situations. And I haven't been great at that. So currently my team I'm the only licensed agent, and then I have 2 administrative assistants. They help me with everything on the front end, everything on the back end. So anything having to do with paperwork, anything having to do with the transaction and the way
putting stuff in MLS, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I have standard operating procedures from everything from lead follow-up all the way through post-closing. So those people follow those standard operating procedures. And that is actually a little piece of advice that I would give people early on. I also generated standard operating procedures a little late, and I hired people without them, expecting that miraculously they would know what to do. And they don't. And so part of the initiative for the next phase in my business is having those procedures solid. When I hire people, I take my time to hire them. I give them scenarios that would be a part of their daily tasks and what they might encounter, see how they handle those, and then have them join the team and then watch them over the first 90 days. So I haven't done that in the past. Right now, it's just the admins. And then we're building, looking forward to the future, to how I might add some agents to that mix. But again,
Like when you say agents, would you talking about like more independent agents, or are you talking about like buyer's agents
I don't know. I'll be
or
honest.
showing agent or something like that?
I'm a little wounded and don't necessarily trust myself right now in hiring, and I don't know what it's going to look like. But I do know this: the business doesn't stop coming, and I can't handle it all. So I have got to put some things in place and take some time to hire people and train them so that they can do that the way I do it. They can handle a client the way I handle a client. They can meet the high expectations I have for client experience, getting ahead of things, anticipation. And so I think right now it's going to look like buyer's agents, possibly, maybe more administrative help in listing specialists who help with all the details of prepping a listing and following up on listings and things like that. But honestly, where I sit right now, I don't know what it's going to look like. It will look like growth. I just am not exactly sure what it's going to look like at this point.
When I hired my very first assistant, it was 2004, and I'd had some pretty good first 2 years. I think I sold 13 million of loans in my first year and 20-ish on my second year, and I knew I wanted to continue to grow. And so I convinced my boss to let me hire someone. I'm pretty sure I had to pay for that person, but I at least let me hire someone. And but then it was like, okay, what the heck am I going to do with this person, right? I had gone through a training. A lot of folks in the mortgage space know a guy named Todd Duncan. He's been around for a long, long time. And I've been to some live trainings of his. And his list of what you have your assistant do is basically write down a giant list of everything that you have to do that you do not want to do. And then you just build a plan around that. And in our head, we're thinking, if I don't want to do them, why would anybody else want to do them? But the reality is there are a lot of people that don't want to do the things that you have to do that absolutely love to do those other things.
Yes.
And it's so much fun when you actually find somebody that's like, oh, great, I love doing this paperwork, right?
Well, the joke in my family is you don't want us to do your taxes, but you want us at your parties. And so I have to surround myself with people who would be good doing someone else's taxes.
That's right.
With all of those details and the follow through and obsessive about, checking off lists and things like that. But yeah.
Yeah. That was a true failure, by the way, my first assistant. It was a bad hire, as you said, bad training on my behalf. You get really frustrated when they just don't figure it out on their own. I've made that mistake multiple times throughout my career. Fortunately, we've gotten significantly better. I've had conversations about this. We've gotten significantly better at hiring. You never really know until they're with you and on your team for probably 6 months, right? For anyone that's looking to hire someone, I would say to anyone, and especially from 2020 to now, we've hired a lot of people, and we've got significantly less people. We've probably, I don't know, if I'm guessing we've hired 15 people, and we've got 5 people on my team now, right? We just actually made a new hire. I don't even know that I've talked to you about this yet. She starts tomorrow. Very, very excited. She's a part-time employee that's going to help us with events. When Taylor was doing my marketing, we moved her over into my executive assistant role, and my hope and a prayer was that she'd somehow magically be able to do 2 people's jobs. Unfortunately, that's not the way that works. No matter how much you want to pay someone, by the way, they can't do 2 people's jobs. So that's fallen off our radar, and that's one of my favorite things. I mean, you and I've kind of talked about this. We want you at our parties. We want to be at your parties, and the events for me give me a lot of inspiration to make the calls that I need to make, right? Like talking about mortgage loans and products, nobody really wants to hear that, right? I certainly don't want to talk about it. When an agent asks me about products, I most of the time I wonder, you must be brand new, right? What do you care about products? Send me your client. We'll figure out how to get them closed. And so I think that's what a lot of newer loan officers do is like go spew information about products because I think that's important. But events for us are really important, right? We like to do, whether it's happy hours or lunch and learns. We're going to get back to doing like first time home buying training and as well as investor webinars and seminars, so we can teach people how to grow their wealth through investment. I'm really excited to do that. It's one of my favorite things because I've been in the business for so long. Probably in the first 10 years or so, I would have hated that. But with the experience that I've had over, literally, I don't know, close to $500 million in mortgage loans at this point. It is certainly, to me, it's a great, fun, pleasurable experience for me to be able to share what we've learned and teach other people how to do that, and learn what's important to them. And so, hiring though is for us we've made a lot of mistakes. I would just say, as we're kind of wrapping up the piece about hiring, is I think you've got to fully, either you have to stop and train them or you have to have someone that will. Fortunately for me, Nicole is in charge of all that, and she is amazing at it, and she is incredibly patient at that, and it's really hard. Even when we hire people that already have their license, teaching the way we do it is so much different than 99% of other people out there. And it's a lot harder, but it also works a lot better. So having patience to maybe, be able to sit this out for 3 to 6 months or more. I mean, whether someone's got the right attitude pretty quickly. And as long as they've got that, then we can teach them most everything else, right? Work ethic and attitude, to me, are two of the most crucial, pieces. Culture obviously is real important. They got to fit in with your team. We spend a lot of time together. Anything else about like hiring for you? Any either challenges or successes that you've had in the past with hiring?
I just would say there is no teacher like pain and or failure, and that it's okay. It was painful. This year has been painful in that respect, but I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I would do differently, and I don't know that I would have learned that lesson had I not gone through what I've gone through. And it's a scary place to be when you're a business owner, because in some pathway there's going to be failure in front of you. But I don't think you can be as successful as you and I are or could be without going through some of that. You just got to go through some of it.
No, you got to learn. You say, talk about the time, like you think about like going to the gym. If your muscles don't get sore, you didn't work with them hard enough to grow, right? It's just that simple. And that's what this is for business owners, is you're going to have some pain to learn through it. It'd be a miracle, right? If everything just went perfectly, well from day one. That's just not going to happen. And you've got to be willing to take those risks. I think from a business owner's perspective, once you realize you're not just a salesperson, but a business owner, you're going to make mistakes. You have to learn from them. One of the things that we try really hard to do on our team is, and this is really uncomfortable with newer people, is sharing like when you make a mistake. Like most people want to hide that. And in my opinion, like when I talk to, you're going to make a mistake, and I totally expect you to do that. Don't think that I don't want you to make a mistake. But when you do, you got to actually bring it out, or we're going to bring it out because we're going to see it. But it's better if you do it. And so everyone else can learn from that mistake, and they don't have to make the same one again, right? We can learn and grow as a team significantly better when we do that.
Yeah, that's good.
You also were sharing earlier with me that you kind of out of happenstance found someone in this past year or so in the financial services world that's made an impact to you. If you'd share a little bit more about that and how.
Yes. This is the Ashley Has Made Lots of Mistakes podcast. Welcome. Okay. Again, accidental business owner. Don't know what I'm doing. Growing. Don't know how to handle the growth. What do I do? One of the things that I didn't is the money part. So you've got money coming in, right? You've got let's say that's 100%. I've got 100% of the dollars coming into this business. What should I be doing with that? How much profit should I have? What should I be expecting? How high should my expenses be? How high should my salaries be? At what point do I continue to hire? And other than real estate advice, I could not find that anywhere. Now, I was at a real estate, it was actually the bar camp.
Oh, yeah.
Not this past year, but 2 years ago. One of the sessions at the local bar camp was run your business like a business. And I thought, if anybody needs to go to this, I need to go to this. It was a 20-minute seminar. I don't even know if I call it a seminar. And I met a man there, and in the first 5 minutes he was speaking, I was like, this is my guy, because I had a financial advisor that was handling my personal stuff, and I have a banker. I didn't have anyone looking at all of that, my business, my personal money, the way my business is structured, how am I taxed, all of that. And so I met with him one-on-one, and it has been a complete game changer. So we're talking tax strategy. We're also talking investment strategy, because I don't want to do this forever. I'm 51. I've got 10 years left. I think I can tolerate it for 10 more years. And then hopefully I'll be in a situation where I can retire. So he's having me look at, how do I structure my business so that I can sell it in 10 years? And how do I need to be investing in a way that I'm not just absolutely killed with taxes when I do decide to retire? So he's looking at all of that for me. That has been extremely helpful. And I would just recommend anyone who's a business owner, earlier than I did, it would be better. Find someone who can quarterback all of that for you, that doesn't necessarily have a vested interest necessarily in any of that growth, but can give you good, solid third-party advice on where to put your money and how to structure your business.
So it's one thing to get advice. It's another thing to actually take it and do it. How good have you been at actually doing what he's shared with you?
Well, we've made 2 moves that I gave him the go-ahead to do. I was initially a little concerned, because having money in my operating account is like a warm, weighted anti-anxiety blanket for me.
Sure.
Right? I look at what I have in my operating account, I divide it by my expenses every month, and it just brings me great comfort.
So you're like, okay, we can survive this many months if the world falls apart.
Yes. If the world falls apart and I don't sell another house, and I think I'm learning about everyone who generates their own business feels this way. It's like, am I ever going to sell this widget again, ever? And he has challenged me on that, and so it took about 6 months for me to give that up, but I did, and we put it in some places that are going to give me. He likes benefits on 3 levels. He likes short-term benefits and he likes long-term benefits. So I have taken that surplus that was in my operating account, and we put it in.
So you're having that work for you now versus it just sitting there making you feel better.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's working for me now. The dollars are making dollars.
I just talked to a potential client yesterday who's moving here. This guy owns a coaching company, nothing to do with our worlds. And they've decided they're going to pay cash for this house. And this is a young couple, and they have the cash, but it's most of their cash. I mean, they're buying a $600,000-$700,000 house. And he just said it gives me emotional benefit for that. And I tried to explain to him that I appreciate the emotional benefit, but it doesn't make financial sense at all.
Right.
You're spreading you're literally taking all your cash, and you're not going to have any backup. Now, yes, you could eventually potentially do a cash out refi, but if something happens to your business and all of a sudden then you can't, right? And so I think there's so many people. What I love hearing you say is you realize, okay, that was literally just, as you said, a security blanket.
Yes.
Is what it was.
Yes.
You can always go get it if you have to.
Yes. But I did not want to let it go.
Yes,
I mean, we had numerous meetings where he was like, Ash, he said, I'm not going to force you to do it.
Yeah.
But it's not doing you any good. And I'm like, I know, but I just like to have it there.
So you were involved, after I introduced you to the core, you got involved in the core training for a short period of time. That was a coaching program I was involved with for 10 years. I will tell you, I was horrible with money. I'm still not great at it, to be frank with you. From a personal perspective, I still spend too much money, that's for sure. But I've at least now spend less than I make, which is that's a crucial piece. I did the wrong
Congratulations.
Yes. And so and I've gone through these trials and tribulations, like just tough years, and then go, okay, I never want that to happen again, right? And so, and I was that kid, by the way. Like my brother would save every penny he ever made, and I would blow every penny I ever got. It's just the way I was. Had a lot of fun. Yep. But there's concern down the road. What happens down there? I'm like, oh, it'll be fine until it's not. Right. But one of the things that I find, it took me forever to learn this from Rick Ruby at the core, was he said, you need to save 20% every single year. and never touch it.
Yep.
Now, in the back of my head, I think probably for the first 5 or 6 years, I thought he meant put it away every year, and then when you eventually need it, you can go get it. No, he literally means never. Like when you're dead, that money is still there. You live off the interest that it creates,
Yes.
right? The income that it produces, not off of that money itself. And that was like just totally mind blowing to me. How could you do that? Well, first of all, you have to spend less money than you make. That's very important. They're one of my favorite Saturday Night Live bits. And I post it about once or twice a year on social media because it's like, how do we get this saved money, right? Like, can you buy something knowing you're gonna have the money and use credit for it? Nope, you can't do it. Anyway, the video there, the piece is great. It's Steve Martin and some other guy. Anyway, it's hilarious. But the point is, you gotta save 20% every month forever. That's
Yes.
basically it. And then that will work for you, great. And if you do that at a very young age,
Yes.
frankly, you'll have more money than you ever need anyway.
Yep.
And it will also create habits, right? So if you're young watching this out there, this will help you create habits to make sure that you're protecting yourself down the road.
100%. In fact, I've decided that at every wedding I'm going to from now on, because those people are usually in their 20s, I'm going to say, here's my advice as someone who's old. Love your family, protect them. And compound interest. Compound interest. Compound interest is your friend. Do it now.
Yes.
Yeah. Do it now.
Compounding is the, what do they say, the 8th miracle of the world or whatever. So,
Yeah.
For sure. Very good. As far as we get kind of towards, 2025 is literally right around the corner. Are you doing anything specific to prepare for next year? Anything in particular that you feel like we need to be worried about or concerned about as we head? I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and they were repeating from a conference that they were at a year ago. They were at the same one this year. Things were much more optimistic this year's conference than they were a year ago in the 2023 era. But the 2023, and I remember hearing this going, no, I don't want that to be true. But it was certainly, I think, very real for us in the mortgage space, and it was survived to 25. That's what they talked about in 23, at the end of 23. This year has been, well, my team and I think we're somewhere close to 25% growth from last year. But I've got a bigger team. Well, I've got bigger expenses this year than I had last year. So I'm probably not going to make more. I'll make a little bit more than I did last year, but not 20 or 30%. I'm prepared, right? By the staff that I have, the experience that I have, I'm prepared for when that market shifts. We're really set to gain market share, and to do it in a very high level and and I'm excited about that. It still stinks in the meantime because I know I'm carrying this overhead. But are you doing anything in particular to prepare for next year or the years ahead, specifically?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, as a philosophy, I try not to worry about what I can't control. I try to be very concerned with what I can control. And there's a lot happening in our industry that I cannot control. And I think you and I talked about this before we started recording. Is it a do I have a scarcity mentality or an abundance mentality? And I try to have an abundance mentality.
I think we talk about fear or faith.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, fear or faith. And it's definitely faith with me. There's always business, and just take care of what I have in front of me. So I try not to get wrapped around what's happening in the market and things like that. Do I look at it? Yeah, but try to be concerned with what I can be concerned with. But what I'm doing right now is restructuring. So who am I going to hire between now and March? Getting them hired and getting them trained in January and February so that we can hit the spring market running. I'm already starting to see that I'm going to be listing heavy this next year. I've already got 4 or 5 listings coming in January or February. And so preparing on that side too. So again, I'm restructuring. I've gotten rid of a lot of people, a lot of staff and team members. So restructuring them, training them well, getting these procedures in place so that then we're ready to go in March. So that's really what I'm focusing on. And then continuing to just help people in the meantime. I mean, there are still people that want to move. They want to move. They can't figure out how they can move, and helping them figure out how they can move and to accomplish their goals. They're tired of their 4,500 square foot homes in where we live in North Raleigh, and they want something smaller and something fresher. So trying to coach them through those things too. So that's what I'm doing to prepare. Those three things: not getting bogged down in fear, having that faith mentality, getting my team ready for what could happen in March, and getting our procedures in place and right people in place, and then helping coach consumers as to how they can accomplish those goals that they really want to accomplish in 2025. And then hold on.
Yeah, I think all those are very wise things to be able to do to prepare. I think you're absolutely right. Again, operating in fear is it's not a fun place to be. Ultimately, if you do it for too long, you're going to get out because you just can't manage the stress that it creates. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today and to be on our podcast. For those of you out there, I want to say thank you for being here at Beyond the Closing Table. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this with anyone that you know that's either a real estate or in mortgage lending or just an entrepreneur, that they can take some of this information, wisdom, and learn for them and their business. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.